Demons are lies, literally. People do not think lies have sentience or agency, but that is why lies are as prevalent and as powerful as they are. This is not to say Joe Average does not notice that lies have a life of their own. It is common knowledge that lies spread faster than the truth. The bad example has more influence than the good example. The way lies are discussed is a tacit nod to their agency, but of course, demons assure us they are not real and lack agency. Therefore, anything done because of a lie is not the fault of the lie. A lie is, according to the demonic world, nothing more than a statement that lacks consilience with the physical world. But who told us the physical world exists? It cannot be proven to exist. We cannot even make sense of the physical realm. It is not just the subatomic world that makes the heads of scientists spin. The idea that our physical senses create a replica of reality in our minds, which are, in fact, part of the reality it is supposed to perceive, is a paradox without even a contradiction. The mind forming a reality identical to the one the mind is in, is an idea we are unable to properly grasp. How is reality perceived whilst being in the mind? No one even dares to try and define or explain the perceiver of reality. But this transcendence of epistemology itself is passed off as just a technical problem. Imagining an observer watching an observation is like thinking about a particle that lacks location and motion until the observer decide to observe it. What does subjectivity and objectivity mean to an observer who has to observe what exists for it to exist? We can pass this off as a quirk of the fundamental particles, but what we are really saying is that reality only has existence when we conceptualize it. Yet, scientists have still managed to avoid looking at the ramifications of physics. Naturalists claim there is a physical reality. This is a reality they cannot prove exists. They observe, test and talk about this reality as if it was real, knowing it is nothing like they imagine it to be. Whatever happens, the thing they hold on to is that no matter what their minds tell them, something has to be real. Even if they cannot directly observe this reality or prove it exists empirically, it is there. Naturalists are convinced something is out there that can be observed and is not a product of mind. This faith in naturalism is partly due to the failure of solipsism. The naturalist view is contrasted with solipsism. This is a technical error. The comparison assumes the mind is capable of producing physical things or has some kind of creative power beyond its own substance. Solipsism is too similar to magic to be a reasonable explanation of reality. The disproof of solipsism consists of demonstrating a mind cannot change reality. Thinking about a tree walking will not make a tree walk. But the mind deals in information and creates knowledge. Why would the mind alter the fabric or laws of reality? For the mind to make physical things, it would have to be possible to make physical things, but first of all someone has to prove that physical reality exists. For solipsism to work as solipsists think it works, the mind would have to be physical and what we see as physical would have to be thoughts. The solipsist paradigm solves nothing and creates a lot of additional problems. Naturalism is as flawed as solipsism and for many of the same reasons. Naturalists claim everything that exists is composed out of matter, energy, space and time, the MEST proposition. But what is mind and how does mind create our observed reality? The negative version of naturalism claims there are no metaphysical statements that are valid and no supernatural elements or actions not better explained by reference to physical laws and capacities. Many people have noticed that this appears to eliminate the possibility of love, thought, information, and even feelings, along with everything else that cannot be verified phenomenologically. The response has been to admit these things do not actually exist but are just figments of our minds, meaning brains. Humans are somewhat a figment of their own imaginations. But the rejection of subjective reality does not permit atheists to escape the consequences of their position. The proposition that only one physical reality exists devoid of all supernatural elements is an oxymoron, explicitly disproving what it asserts. If there are no metaphysical propositions that are valid, why make a metaphysical statement? If there's only one physical reality that excludes everything not ascertainable by means of the physical senses, why does it take an additional reality, one in which metaphysical propositions make sense and are valid, to prove this? There is nothing about a tree that makes it a tree. The meaning is not in the perception. Indeed, what is a tree but a subjective impression of what we do not know, that we randomly labeled a tree? What is there about a mental event that would make it a tree or anything else? Our minds construct these things, not out of the perception of a tree, but out of the signals sent to the brain via the optic nerves from the ganglia of the eye. This is not much out of which to construct a mental reality from. Thus, naturalists are forced to admit that everything they think they see and know is contingent. There is no way to validate the perceptions and interpretations we make. We can ask if the other observer sees a purple robe or feels a hard surface, but we have no idea what they mean by purple robe or hard surface, nor can they confirm our definition of a tree is the same as their own. Naturalists are to a very large extent locked in their own subjective reality. There is no known path to validating their reality. Which is why movies like The Matrix can be made. Interestingly, the bodies in Matrix are in pods that sustain them, while machines feed the minds of these subjects an artificial reality. Yet, there is still a real reality in which the pod-enclosed body rests. But how is a machine supposed to know how human beings see or experience reality? For the body in the pod, the lie is real. But then how does the mind compose a reality from artificial inputs, if these inputs from the machine conflicts with reality? If reality is all in your brain, how is the body in a reality that is not in the brain? If the eye is not seeing anything, how is the visual cortex creating visual images? Something surely would not be working as it ought or was designed to do, were we in a matrix-like environment. Yet, why would a lie impact physical reality? Would this not be a kind of reverse solipsism? When not even the truth is a truth but only a contingent statement the truthfulness of which cannot be fully determined, what possible harm could incrementally increasing the enormity of the lie do? But if reality is all a lie and a figment of the brain, how is the truthfulness of anything determined? How do we even condemn liars in an environment in which there is no truth or lies, but only contingent statements? This, it seems, is the unkindest cut of all, because what it says is that there is no route open to those who seek perfection, within the liberal paradigm. Lies are just not an issue, and failure is something liberals learn to tolerate. We are forced once more to ask what it means to assert there is but one reality that is physical and objective, yet produces no objective, true or verifiable truth. Indeed, the supposed objective reality can only be discussed in terms of contingent statements and probabilities. Meaning that if we are going to say anything meaningful about physical reality, it has to be said in a different reality. What mental prison have we locked ourselves into, in our quest to find a reality that is objective and godless? What conclusions are we required to embrace to defend the claim only a posteriori inductive statements have meaning? Secularists say this knowing for a fact meaning is impossible in a relativistic framework. To even claim all truth is relative is to create a contradiction from which there is no epistemological escape. Yet, how many liberals use absolute metaphysical statements to deny absolute metaphysical statements have meaning? But they have no choice. So, ultimately, naturalists must go outside the framework they espouse to support it. This is pretty obvious once we realize the naturalist worldview is limited to conditional statements. So if one is tempted to say naturalism is the only reality, or only empirical science reliable truth, one has to step outside of the naturalist framework. To affirm naturalist truths encompasses all reality. One must express the claim in the metaphysical realm because one is asserting a metaphysical truth. There is no way to state an absolute, non-contingent, unqualified statement in the secular, naturalist, inductive reality, and so no path to confirming the one reality hypothesis of naturalism. In short, to have a natural reality that contains all truth, there has to be a reality composed of metaphysical truths and deductive statements just to be able to talk about it. We call this alternative configuration the two-reality hypothesis. As said, there must be metaphysical truths if we are going to have the tools needed to discuss the one-reality hypothesis. To prove there is a single reality, there must be two realities. To discuss naturalism, we must resort to using metaphysical statements. If there are in fact two realities, there can be and indeed must be metaphysical truths. If not, if there are no metaphysical truths, we cannot formulate naturalist statements either. If we surmise the possibility of two realities and postulate one of these realities is metaphysical and contains absolute deductive statements, then we can consider a naturalist reality, but why bother? We have in metaphysics a reality that can be validated, logically, morally, and empirically. But there can be no lies or even contingent statements in metaphysical truths, and as we have suggested, there can be no demonic forces. Demons face an incontrovertible fact. Truth cannot be disproved. No lie can contradict what is true, it can only be inconsistent with it and try and hide it. Logic cannot be overturned by lies, but liars can set aside the truth for a period. But truth creates reality. If we desire to obtain $1 million, we can work for it, or steal it. Stealing $1 million does not create it. The money is transferred without compensation, and so it is not a true million, but it gives the criminal the illusion of having $1 million. However, if we were to know the truth in its fullness, the criminal would lose the million plus much more. This transfer of value results in a loss of value to the community and a decline in the level of value creation. This is why societies with high crime rates will suffer a decline in their cultural richness and level of civilization. People look for shortcuts. The rap artist and classicalist not only play different music, but they also live in different realities. At some point, money that is stolen will be redistributed into the economy. Even here, the spending of stolen wealth distorts the economy in non-productive ways. Many people start out by either thinking the theft they engage in is too small to impact anyone. Shoplifting is said only to impact the very wealthy store owner. Other criminals rationalize their crime by thinking that at some point they will make it up to society and the ones they have wronged. Kids who steal are liars, and liars end up as thieves. They live in a sidereal universe. In other words, crimes are buried under rationalizations. So, stealing is wrong, but the crime can be turned into something justified by the criminal who considers the theft a loan or restitution for some past harm done them or their family, race, or people. Much crime is done almost as an act of God. Stores are looted as an act of divine vengeance meted out on an evil world. Right is made wrong and wrong right, and the criminal is then able to sleep at night and to even think of himself as a hero. The lies of a criminal are self-serving narratives that take on a life of their own. To defeat the process and the lie, one has to refuse to excuse any act that is not rational, not matter how it is rationalized. If one cannot pay for what one does, the act is not done. If we cannot pay for what we take, it is not taken. We do not look to fix the world, we focus on fixing our own standards. Never make excuses for not paying your costs. Never rationalize, but be rational. Rationalism makes you the arbiter of value and justice. Reason makes the market the arbiter. Rationality, as being subject to the mechanisms of a rational market, is the one and only way to demon-proof yourself and demon-proof society.